On today's show, Rockets contract drama with Kevin Durant, plus the Blazers find a buyer and sell the team. How can new ownership level things up in Portland? It's all coming up right here at Locked On NBA.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
What is up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And joining me is my partner in crime, the host of Locked On Heat, David Ramil. David, how many of Katie's tweets do you see on a day-to-day basis on Twitter?
I try to avoid all of them, to be honest with you. With the exception of the number of Locked On hosts that he seems inclined to attack personally, that's pretty much it.
Maybe that's what we should have done for our power rankings at the end of this. Episode is power ranking the best KD tweets of the summer. Look, we got a fun show for you here today. We're going to be tackling some of the reports and concerns with Kevin Durant and the Houston Rockets, a contract standoff, if you will, between the two parties, seemingly here this offseason, as well as getting into the sale of the Portland Trail Blazers and what new ownership can possibly do to level things up in Portland. And then a little bit later on, we'll get to a fun power ranking segment where we're going to be blind ranking some of the best NBA nicknames. So that should be a lot of fun. First, I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. And as always, thanks so much for making Locked On NBA your first listen each and every day. All right, David. So just to kind of lay the foundation here really quickly, we had the whole Kevin Durant, sweepstakes earlier this offseason. Rockets were the team that came out on top. They made the blockbuster trade to acquire KD. And it seemed to be kind of this foregone conclusion that the team that acquired Kevin Durant, assuming it was one of his, quote unquote, preferred destinations, that you trade for the star player and then he signs the extension and you guarantee, that you have him on your roster for at least the next couple of years, 2 to 3 years, give or take, instead of, this kind of lame duck situation where he's only got the 1 year left on his contract for this upcoming season. And to this point, there's been very little, reports out there about the Rockets and Kevin Durant coming to terms on this contract extension. There were some reports about KD's possible willingness to give back a little bit of money and maybe take a little bit of a pay cut on his next deal. And then recently, ESPN was reporting that the Rockets aren't necessarily under any kind of pressure to come to terms on an agreement this offseason with Kevin Durant, which I kind of feel like is a little bit of a mishandling of the situation, because that I feel like that's something where you would want both sides to have ultimately the peace of mind that that you're both locked in, that you're both committed to the future, both Kevin Durant, in Houston, and the Rockets committing to KD for what is likely going to be the remainder of his career. I doubt he has another pit stop after Houston left in him at this stage. What's your read on the situation with the Rockets and KD and kind of how things have transpired there and why there isn't an extension taking place yet?
I feel like everybody's kind of rushing to figure out why it hasn't been announced or why we haven't heard more news about it. But you have to hope, just from both perspective of the team and the player, that negotiations have already started taking place. As you said, it's far too dangerous to do that with a player, especially one of this age and of this kind of significance. Like, you're pinning your title hopes basically on the acquisition of Durant, and you've traded a lot of something in order to get him, and you can't afford to piss him off and then have him say, you know what, I don't like the way this is playing out, I'm just going to leave. And that's always his prerogative to do so. So that's still an option there. So you have to assume that there have been some kind of discussions and that for some reason they just haven't been reported on. But that seems like an awfully big risk to take to alienate a player, again, of Durant's stature. So, I mean, you cover the team. I just can't see what their rationale for being indirect or for not having resolved this already, because, I mean, we saw this with Jimmy Butler, and I understand completely why the Miami Heat didn't want to pay him. He wasn't that kind of player. He wasn't supposed to ever be paid like a number one option, because I think at this point in Jimmy's career, he's not a number one option. But if you want to pay him number one option money, knowing that he's going to be complimenting a player like Steph Curry, that's fine. That's up to Warriors ownership. Having said that, why aren't the Rockets making more of a concerted effort to sign him right away and get this done?
Yeah, it certainly feels, again, like a little bit of a mishandling of the situation, albeit I will say that, that being the kind of the one and only big concern, right, is you don't want to piss off KD. And I'm sure that him and his camp would like to get the contract situation just taken care of, have that peace of mind, ink the deal, whatever. Maybe it is because there's negotiations taking place. Maybe the Rockets are trying to play hardball with KD a little bit and getting him to give back a little bit of that money instead of inking him to, I think his max, it's like 2 years, $121 million extension or something like that. So approximately $60 million a year. Maybe they're trying to get him to take a little bit of a discount on that deal, given the fact that the team will have some pretty steep payroll commitments in the coming years with extensions for Jabari Smith Jr. and likely Tari Eason kicking in. The Tari situation is still up in the air as well. And then likely, being slated for a rookie scale max extension for Amin Thompson down the line as well. So they're just trying to do their due diligence. But I agree, it's a concern because you don't want this cloud lingering over the team going into the regular season. I will say, though, I can't see why Kevin Durant and his camp would be okay with this situation. I'm sure they want the commitment. I'm sure they want the security that the guaranteed contract would come with.
Sure.
From the Rockets' perspective, right, maybe this is a situation where, again, if they don't feel this pressure, if they're okay with KD being this hired gun for one season and playing it out and seeing how it goes, maybe they don't feel like they need this long-term commitment to a 38 or 39 or 40-year-old Kevin Durant. Maybe they're okay with seeing how the 1 year goes and reevaluating next summer and deciding, you know what? Okay, cool. We had some success this year. We're cool with it. Now we want to, we'll bring you back on a 2+1 or a 1+1 deal and keep you here for the next couple seasons until you're ready to hang them up. Because from the Rockets' perspective, they still have a lot of that young talent. Maybe Alperen Sengun takes another leap this year. Maybe Amin Thompson has this, has a ridiculous year 3 leap. And then maybe they're in a position where they don't necessarily feel like they need to have Kevin Durant on a $60 million contract for the final couple years of his career at age 38, 39 in order to win a title. And maybe they'd feel that they could better allocate that money, those resources elsewhere on the roster, which is maybe they're kind of in this position of like, hey, we can afford to play hardball with you a little bit. Like, you're under contract. We traded for you. Now, I don't want to get it twisted here. I think KD wants to be in Houston. And I think Houston very much wanted KD. This was a marriage that both sides were up for. But it's a situation where Rafael Stone, there's a track record of him, doing this due diligence with his players, even though it might rub guys wrong, in certain situations. But it's his job to get the best financial value, the most bang for his buck. And if you can get KD to give back even $5 million a year, get him at $55 million instead of $60+ million, then that's important for a team that's going to be pressed up against the second apron very soon.
You also just want to deal with this before the start of camp, though. Like, you don't want to go into media day for a team that has these high aspirations and is looking to go in there and have positive vibes and have a unified message that everybody shares. And you don't want to go into camp and the start of media day with this kind of division taking place between your star player and the front office. So you want everybody to be on board with what the purpose of this team is. So you, at the very least, there has to be some kind of a statement or some kind of update from the front office indicating that we're making progress, or we're reaching a deal, or we're nearing a deal, or even, hey, we have no intention of signing him to said extension, and we're not going to deal with it until next year, because otherwise it's too nebulous, and you don't want that kind of deal hanging over. You don't want that kind of, just the whole negativity attached to that, just clouding what could be a very positive year for the Rockets. Having said all that, what's the number you feel comfortable with? You know this team, you know the cap situation, you know what KD can bring to the table. What's the number that you would feel most comfortable giving him?
I think that's the other side of it, is just, if the Rockets do have their internal concerns, maybe about KD, about his age, about his injury history, and they're a little worried about committing, $120 million to this guy for the next 2 years after this upcoming season. Again, if you could get KD to give back, we'll say $10 million a season, that's a lot of money. It's $20 million total. That's a lot to ask a player to give back. But in the context of being able to maintain and keep, a winning roster in place, a roster that gives the Rockets a chance to contend for titles at the highest level, being able to have the options to add those depth pieces, things that they've done this past offseason. I think that, 2 years, 100 million seems, more than fair for a player of his stature. But maybe that's too much to expect KD to give back in any possible deal. So maybe we're talking, if there is a discount, if any, maybe it's something closer to like 4 or 5 million instead of a $10 million chunk of change. But we want your thoughts on the Rockets Kevin Durant contract standoff. Are the Rockets mishandling that situation? Should they feel pressured into signing Kevin Durant to an extension? Let us know your thoughts in the YouTube comments. Coming up, the Blazers' sale of the team officially goes through. What can new ownership do to level things up in Portland? We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, one day only, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL preseason predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Maybe you want to crown a division champ this early in the season, or just take a look at the outright favorites to win the Super Bowl this season. Right now, you can take a look over at FanDuel.com. See all the odds there. There's a 3-way tie at the top. Bills, Ravens, and Eagles all plus 700 to win it this season. Behind them, you got the Chiefs at plus 800. And then rounding out the top 5, you got the Detroit Lions at plus 1,100 to win this year's Super Bowl. So for all those odds and so much more, head on over to FanDuel.com or visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. And continuing on here at Locked On NBA, thanks so much for making us your first listen each and every day. For your next listen, go find the Locked On Show for your favorite team. All right, David, the Portland Trailblazers have been up for sale for a minute now. Finally, the sale going through. The estate of Paul G. Allen coming through with the sale, selling to Tom Dundon, the owner of the NHL's Carolina Hurricanes, agreeing to buy the Portland Trailblazers for a valuation of just a little over $4 billion. Sources confirming to ESPN. Let's throw it out to our Locked On host of Locked On Blazers, Mike Richmond, for his reaction to this news.
The Trailblazers are about to have a new owner. On Wednesday, the owner of the Carolina Hurricanes, Tom Dundon, reached an agreement to purchase the Portland Trailblazers from the Allen estate for reportedly north of $4 billion. The Blazers have been up for sale since May, and while the closure of the sale may take several months, we at least know who the owner will be. Dundon is joined by a couple other venture capitalist types, but he's going to be the governor when all things are said and done. Under his stewardship, the Carolina Hurricanes have transformed from an also-ran to a pretty darn competitive, playoff-worthy hockey team. A hockey team is not a basketball team, but it also included, during his ownership, renovating the arena and signing a new lease. Two things the Blazers desperately need, with just 5 years remaining on their lease and the NBA calling for them to get a new or a fully renovated arena. The new owner knows the game plan. Whether he'll actually be a good owner or not remains to be seen, but at least he knows the playbook, and at least the Blazers' ownership situation seems to be headed towards a finalization soon.
All right, David. So I feel like, first off, we've seen a lot of NBA team sales in the last, probably like 5-6 years, like a handful of them. And most notably this offseason, right? The sale of the Lakers and the Celtics, the two most storied franchises in NBA history. Both of those valuations going for a skosh more than $4 billion. So the Celtics going for a little over $6 billion, and then the Lakers going for a ridiculous whopping $10 billion. What do you make of this, and what does new ownership potentially have the chance to do? I guess not just for the Blazers, but what does new ownership mean to an organization in general? Do you feel like
kind of changes again the vibes of a front office in terms of establishing a culture that I think had been missing there for some time. It's not just about what we see on the surface level in terms of a head coach or even a general manager that occasionally makes a statement to media and to the fans. It's about having a cultural identity that stems from the very, very top. You want to be able to have an owner that I think is a clear voice, but not necessarily a meddlesome one. Like at least a presence in the sense that, look, this is what our directive is as an organization, as a team. We're looking to win. We're looking to compete. We're looking to provide the very best arena for our fan experience, etc. Maybe even a vision of what they want from a technological perspective. There's a lot to kind of sew into this. So that's what I think of when I think of ownership changes. It's not just a paycheck, or it's not just somebody who signs the checks in this case. It would be somebody who has a clear vision and identity that they want to implement at every stage here. And we've seen it, I think, play out in real time with Steve Ballmer and the Los Angeles Clippers, not just from what we see on the court in terms of the roster that they field on a day-to-day basis, but changing the logo around, changing their arena around, changing the way they operate in terms of how they structure their front office. This has been playing out over the last decade or so, I guess, but it's just something that we kind of see happen in real time. And I think we're going to start to see this with a lot of different franchises, because once these multi-billionaires get their hands into these organizations, they want to be able to leave an imprint and leave a lasting legacy, and maybe turn them around or kind of flip the script into being a championship organization yet again. So I think that's what we're going to see from the new Blazers ownership.
It's so interesting, because when you do get that, I guess, kind of like the new ownership fever, if you will, when a new owner steps in, sometimes they suddenly they want to be hands-on, and they want to be the ones calling the shots and doing different things. And it's really funny, because I think sometimes you have to go through that new ownership phase of realizing, hey, maybe you don't know how to run, an organization.
Absolutely.
Notoriously, most recently we have, the Matt Ishbia situation with the Phoenix Suns, and Ishbia has been, speed running, turning the Suns into just a dumpster fire, unfortunately, right after coming off, off a finals appearance and looking like they had an incredibly bright future, and kind of this young core of Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton and Mikal Bridges and all this talent. And then they make the KD trade, and they kind of gut their roster. And some of these decisions made along the way, right, maybe weren't the right ones. And you can go back and always play, hindsight being 2020, but that's kind of one of the issues. New owner steps in, he starts calling some shots, he starts making these win now decisions, or maybe putting pressure on a front office to do the things that he thinks would make the team a contender. And then it comes back to bite you a little bit further down the line. For the Rockets, when they sold the team to Tillman Fertitta years ago, back in 2017, notably Fertitta was, pretty outspoken, pretty vocal in his first, year or two owning the team. And, he was the guy who, noted, he came out and basically said, we're going to find that final 5% before the Rockets went out and kind of ham-fisted the Chris Paul for Russell Westbrook trade. And that was a whole thing where, you had to gauge how much say Fertitta had in that trade, versus also including, James Harden and Mike D'Antoni and all the different voices that were at play in that dynamic. And since that point, since kind of the ramifications of the Russell Westbrook trade, which the Rockets are still feeling to this day, because they included 4 future first-round picks, 2 picks and 2 pick swaps, he's taken more of a backseat, and he's realized, okay, hey, I'll put the right people in charge. I'll put the right basketball minds at the front of the organization, let them steer through the rebuild. And now the Rockets are, on the upswing, and one of the, NBA's legitimate contenders to potentially dethrone the OKC Thunder this next year. And that was a very short kind of rebuilding turnaround. But ownership in the NBA does pay dividends. And at the end of the day, like when you have a good owner, quote unquote, it can be the difference between being a team that's stuck in NBA purgatory versus being one of the teams that's actually competing for titles year in, year out.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, you could go up and down the list, and you're going to have probably some complaints about almost every owner. I happen to cover a team where Mickey Arison, and I don't even know how well a name he is outside of Miami Heat circles. He's pretty hands off, and he's kind of viewed that way, like internally from the team. He just does what he can to support the team, but always deflects credit, always gives credit to Pat Riley and the rest of the front office, Eric Spoelstra and the coaching staff, and the players themselves. And look, he's being inducted in the Basketball Hall of Fame later this next month. So, like, I think that's kind of a model, at least in terms of how I view ownership, being you always want to be able to empower everybody and give them the right to their voice and have them be heard. And also understand that just because you might have the deepest bank account doesn't necessarily make you the smartest guy in the room, especially when it comes to building a team. So you defer to those other people. And yeah, you can have your opinion, but you also want to hire the right people in place so that they can say, that's great that you think so, Mr. Moneybucks, but we also appreciate that we're just going to go in a completely different direction. So it's good to see these kind of new wave of owners and understanding, look, some are going to succeed and some are not. And you kind of have to hope, at least, again, from the Portland side of things, I think it does bring about a welcome change for a team that's kind of been stuck in not necessarily purgatory, but going through a clear rebuilding phase and might be looking to their next phase of competing for, I think they're a little far away from competing for a title, but never know. Maybe a new ownership can steer them in the right direction.
Hey, man, 36 wins this past season. Blazers might be a team that starts creeping up the Western Conference standings. You never know with the impact of new ownership. But coming up, we're going to have a little bit of fun here. We're going to get to our power ranking segment of sorts. We're going to blind rank the best nicknames in the NBA. We're going to get there in just one moment. And final segment here at Locked On NBA. Thanks so much for hanging out with us here at Locked On NBA. All right, David, we are in the throes of NBA August, so we're going to have a little fun in this segment. We've been doing our power rankings episodes, so if you've been following along with that series, we'll be hopefully back at it next week, depending on what the NBA news cycle throws at us. But we didn't want to cram it all into one segment, so we're going to have a little fun with our power rankings on today's show. We're going to blind rank the best nicknames in the NBA. So the spotlight is going to be on David. I'm going to throw him nicknames. We're going to do the 10 best nicknames in the NBA. And I'm going to throw nicknames at him left and right. He doesn't know where I'm coming from, what nicknames I'm choosing, and he's going to have to sift through and try and figure out how he's going to label and list these. So are you ready to get underway, David?
Please, let's do it. I can't wait.
Okay. All right. Let's start with one that's, I'm gonna start with one that used to be near and dear to my heart. I'm sure I've got some merch of him floating around here somewhere. James Harden, the Beard.
Like, it's become synonymous. I get it. Are we ranking the 10 here? The top 10?
We're ranking the top 10. So you're blind ranking top 10 nicknames in the NBA.
It's also not very creative, but it has allowed also for people to like Photoshop pictures of him without a beard. Like, I still don't even know.
Not very creative. He's got a whole thing. It's Fear the Beard, man. Come on.
No, I'm not sorry. It's facial hair, man. It's okay. Like, I get it. It's also at the same time, it doesn't rhyme. It doesn't do anything. The beard, I'm giving it an 8.
Okay, an 8. Wow. Okay. All right. So coming out of the gate low with an 8 for the Beard. Okay. All right. Let's do this next one. Trae Young, Ice Trae.
Ice Trae, again, a play on words. I like a good pun. Say what you will about his performances over the, some, not necessarily the playoffs or whatever, or the regular season, but he was a trade bait not that long ago, and yet here he is, Ice Trae. Good nickname. I'm gonna go 4 on this one.
4. Oh, that's high on the list. Okay. All right.
I like it. I like Ice Trae. I get it. A good pun makes a lot more sense than just, hey, look at that guy. He's got a beard, doesn't he?
Oh, man. Okay. The James Harden shots never stop with you, huh, David? All right.
No, they do not.
Let's go new age here. One of the up and coming stars of the NBA, the alien, Victor Wembanyama.
Again, I like it. Appropriate. He seems to like it. I think he's a bit of a nerd as well. He's talked about a couple of, I think, sci-fi franchises that are in his wheelhouse there. So, alien. At the same time, no, you know what? I kind of give it to him. I'm going to go with a 5 on that.
A 5 for the alien. Okay, all right.
Yes,
now I've got the list here, so we'll be able to recap at the very end and see where everything ultimately lands. All right, next name that I've got pulled up for you here. Chef Curry. Steph Curry, Chef Curry.
9.
9. Wow, very low on the Steph Curry. Any reason why you don't think it's creative or what?
What are we? I mean, Chef Curry. Like, was it a play on the fact that Curry seasoning? Like, that he's cooking you? Like, I don't get it. I know he had the cooking show with his wife at one point. That he's participated in that to some regard. I don't get it. I don't know. I don't even know the origins of it. So maybe I'm just being misinformed. Is there more to the story than Just he's a guy who can cook you up on the court.
I think it's a layered nickname a little bit, right? There's the Curry, there's the he was cooking with Aisha at some point. He can cook you on the court. There's like, it's not like a double entendre, it's like a triple, quadruple entendre. Anyways, all right, low on Steph Curry. That's that's totally fine. There's gonna be some Curry stands in your mentions. Don't worry about it, David. All right, let's go back overseas for this one. Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Greek Freak.
Yeah, good. I mean, I understand. Again, we're talking alien, we're talking freak. I'm going to have to put him back to back here. I'm going to go 6 on Greek Freak.
Greek Freak down at 6. Okay, all right. This is one that I kind of feel like, I almost have to include it, even though I feel like I know exactly where you're going to go with it. But LeBron James, King James.
That's a tough one, right? Because there's the whole, is it self-appointed kind of thing? And yet it kind of has just always worked out. I mean, he's the king, right? I mean, I don't mind it. I've never had the same problem with it that some people have. I'm going to go high on it. I'm going to go 3.
3. Okay. All right. So we got King James clocking in at number 3. All right. I'm going to hit you with one of my personal favorites, and I think it's one of the most underrated nicknames in the entire NBA. Jose Alvarado, Grand Theft Alvarado, GTA.
I'm going to go 1 on that one.
1 on, okay, I like it. 1 on GTA. I respect it, honestly, because that, to me, that's one of the most creative nicknames in the entire NBA.
Absolutely. I mean, it applies to, it's got the whole look. I totally dig it. It's got the vibe. It passes the vibe check to me. I totally dig it. I mean, it's just a role player, but why not? Why can't role players have really cool nicknames across the NBA? Why does it just have to be superstars?
All right, here we go. Speaking of role players with cool nicknames, we've got a couple slots left for David here to fill out this list. 3 spots specifically. We've got 2, 7, and 10 left on the board.
Oof.
So next role player up, Lou Dort, the Dorture Chamber.
Okay, that's a good one. I like.
Alternatively, he's got 2 really good ones. Is the crazy part, because you can do Dorture Chamber, you can also do Dort Knox, and both of them are great.
I don't think I've heard Dort Knox.
They're both phenomenal. Are you kidding me? They're incredible. Like the fact that he's a lockdown defender and he has not 1 but 2 incredible like lockdown defender names is so perfect for who he is as a player.
I'm probably going to regret this, but the fact that both of them kind of work very well, I'm going to go with 2 on this one. I know I'm then kind of boxing myself out here, but yeah, you know what? Lou Dort gets the 2nd spot on my list.
All right, and which one are you preferential to? Do you like Dorture Chamber more or
Dorture Chamber? Dorture Chamber, I think, is better.
Dorture Chamber is a phenomenal one. All right, cool. All right, we're gonna go a little older 10, here on this one. We got 7 and 10 left. Dame time.
Oh, Dame time. 7. Gotta go 7 on Dame time.
Honestly, Dame time. I'm surprised you don't have more flack to give this one about it being like a whole, like it's just his name. It's not creative. Like a lot of the same rants that you were given earlier. I'm surprised I'm not hearing those for Dame.
No, because again, that's a play on words. Game time, Dame time. I get it. You call game, you call Dame. I get it. Pointing to the watch. I like that. Kind of like the ice tray. You point to the veins. I totally dig it. At least that's where it kind of differentiates. Like, what's James pointing to? Like this muff that he's got growing off under his chin. Like,
oh man, and I did totally box you in here because the last player that I had on our list is none other than Nikola Jokic, the Joker.
That's fine. Again, not very creative. I'm fine giving him a 10 on that because it's also what works really well. Is also that he's probably very dryly funny, and he probably has a sense of humor that doesn't show very often. So not much of a joker, actually, in that sense. So I love it. I'm fine with giving him a 10. I think that's pretty appropriate.
All right, well, there we go. We got our blind ranking 1 through 10 NBA nicknames here. Just to recap, we've got at number 1, Jose Alvarado, Grand Theft Alvarado. Number 2, Lou Dort with the Dorture Chamber. Number 3, LeBron James, the King James moniker. Number 4, Trae Young, Ice Trae. Number 5, Victor, the Alien Wembanyama. Number 6, Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Greek Freak. Number 7, Damian Lillard, Dame time. Number 8, James Harden, the Beard. So with some shots courtesy of David. And then number 9, Steph Curry, Chef Curry. And last but certainly not least, number 10, Nikola Jokic, the Joker. We certainly want your thoughts on how we blind rank these nicknames. Where would you rank some of these nicknames in the NBA landscape. Are there any nicknames that we left off the board that we should have included? Give us your thoughts in the YouTube comments. But for David and myself, that's going to wrap up our edition here of Locked On NBA. Be on the lookout for our sister show, the other Locked On NBA program, on this very podcast feed or on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcasts. But as always, thanks so much for checking us out. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Thanks so much for listening, watching, all that good stuff. And we'll catch you guys on our next episode of Locked On NBA.